I rather love this. It's Celia by Adrian Mitchell. And I've chosen it because it's very short, and you can learn poems easily. But if you're just starting out learning, then perhaps learn something which doesn't take a lot of concentration. I mean, all our actors here know how to learn huge amounts of lines easily, but once you've got something inside of you, it really belongs to you. And I understood this early on in life because, back to the old Winterson madness, she once burned all of my books, which was a terrible thing. And then I realized that anything that's outside of you can always be destroyed, taken away at any moment. And in a world where so many people now are refugees, we know what that might feel like, and it might happen to us. So if you had nothing, if you had to leave, if you had to take things away, what would you have inside you that you could rely on and that you could depend on? And would you be able to recite things to yourself and others in that stressful time? And this is a lovely, wonderful poem about the glory of beauty and the joy of the body and sex and just these simple, elemental, everyday pleasures that make you feel better about being a carbon-based human in a silicon world. Helena, you're going to read it to us.
I read it.
Go on.
So I guess I'm meant to know it by heart now.
Read it twice.
I'll read it by heart. Celia. Celia, by Adrian Mitchell. When I am sad and weary, when I think all hope has gone, when I walk along High Holborn, I think of you with nothing on.
Poem. Oh, go on, do it again. Do it again. Yeah, do it again.
How can I do it differently? Should I do it quicker?
No.
Any suggestions?
Change the streets.
What?
Change the streets.
But then it went rhyme. Euston Road. When I'm sad and weary, when I think all hope is... We could rap to it. When I'm sad and weary, when I think all hope is gone, when I walk along High Holborn, I think of you with nothing on.
William, just...
It works.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what it shows. It shows a poem can be read in many ways.
So you're all going to learn that, okay? When you go home tonight. You got 2 poems to learn tonight, and that's one of them.
Oh, listen, wait till you see what's coming. You're going to have pages and pages of poems to learn. Okay, let's go on to our next one, which again, Jeanette, is one that I think you'll introduce for us.
Yes, and Sue's going to read this in a moment, and it's a perfect poem, really, to stop beating yourself up in the crazy West, where we always think we have to be doing something in order to improve ourselves. You know, whatever it is, the latest self-help book, read it and life will change. Well, it won't. And this poem is actually, well, it won't, will it? I hope nobody in the audience has actually written a self-help book. This is really about removing obstacles rather than doing anything. It's about being, not doing. Sue, go on, do it.
Go on.
Be it.
I'm going to be it right now. Yes, this is attributed to Rumi. The translator's unknown, and it's called Your Task. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Think about it. Just think about it. Not No, it's very brief.
Like short ones, obviously, Jeanette.
Well, I like long ones too.
That's very enigmatic, that.
Yeah, it is, but it's the sort of thing that you can carry with you, like a talisman, isn't it? You know, some people carry around a rabbit's foot, you know, or a lucky penny. Yeah, well,
Who carries around a rabbit's foot?
There's also a more simple analysis of it in a way, which is lots of people come and talk to me about love and how often they find themselves pursuing people who aren't interested in them, but how so often they turn away the people who are. And I think it's something we all recognize, do we not? That at times in life, actually, the right partner, the right person for a relationship might be standing right next to you, and you're busy looking at the one walking over the hill. That got them going.
Yeah. Do you think we should have a shake hands with the person next to you moment?
William, the next poem.
A couple of months ago, I was asked to do a pharmacy and a talk to open a new office building in London, one of those sort of co-working sites. And I spent the afternoon, about 3 hours, listening to people's problems. And halfway through, the security guard came in and he said, "Your 3:30 hasn't turned up. Can I take their place?" And I said, "Of course, come and sit down. What's on your mind?" And he said to me, "I came out when I was 24, but I'm 32 and I still haven't had a relationship." And I said, "That's very sad. Why do you think that is?" He said, "I don't know. I'm loving and I'm kind and I'm upbeat and I'm positive. But I'm Muslim and I'm gay and I can't be both." And I said, "You have to listen to this poem. This was written 700 years ago by one of the greatest Muslim poets of all time. And it's all about how men can love each other as well as women." And I read it to him, and he burst into tears, and I think it was probably the most powerful prescription or pharmacy I've ever been involved in. And I think it's time for you to all hear it. Tom.
It Happens All the Time in Heaven by Hafez, translated by Daniel Ladinsky. It happens all the time in heaven, and someday it will begin to happen again on earth, that men and women who are married, and men who are lovers, and women who give each other light, often will get down on their knees, and while so tenderly holding their lover's hand, with tears in their eyes, will sincerely speak, saying, "My dear, how can I be more loving to you? How can I be more kind?"
William, just listening to you tell that story about that poem and the effect it had on someone, I mean, it's almost a confessorial role that you're in, isn't it, when you're sitting there?
Maybe. I feel as though I'm a cipher, or I'm holding hands between that person and that poem. I mean, it's an incredibly powerful and wonderful feeling to be able to simply just connect people to the right poem for their needs. And that's all you really have to do. And as I said, I think we live in a world where we want to talk to people, but we're a bit confused because social media gives us the illusion that we're talking to people all the time, and we're not really. And I think that makes us even lonelier. Doing my pharmacy around the country, the most common ailment is loneliness. And this is really exacerbated by this strange avatar world we live in, where people put up not themselves on social media. They don't say, "I'm miserable, I'm lonely," or any of these things. Their lives are filled with friends and likes and so on, and it makes everybody else feel increasingly inadequate.
Jeanette.
Can I just ask William something? William, do you think poetry, when you do your poetry pharmacies around the country, do you think poetry can work for people who think they're not interested in poetry, or poetry's not for them? And somebody might just say, "Oh, look, there's a tent, I'll have a go."
Definitely, because I think the P word gets in the way. I'm sure most of us feel the same thing, which is, as we grow up, a slight sense that we've been failed by the intermediaries in poetry, the English teachers, the librarians, the booksellers. Somewhere around 11, 12 or whatever, a lot of people lose their confidence in being able to read a poem or feeling that poetry is for them. But in the end, poetry is just words trying to connect to you. In the same way that prayer can be, or liturgy can be, and so forth. So, yes, I think it's accessible to anyone, but what's required, in a way, is a little bit of hand-holding, and most important of all, context.
Isn't there also something else which is sometimes almost a rereading of a poem? It's the, we want poems to be read slowly because we want them to sink in, because it's the layers of meaning. And sometimes you don't get them on a first.
Oh, definitely you don't. And that's why I would say to people, read a poem like a prayer. Don't read it like fiction or journalism. Read it out aloud in your head. Or out aloud if you're able to, if you're not on the bus. But read it out aloud in your head and read it 5 nights running. Keep it by your bed, you'll get something completely different from it every time. And as it unlayers, you'll pick up on all the cadences and the lyricism and the musicality, and it will enrich you.
Do you think people have lost the ability to concentrate, to listen?
Well, we're certainly affected by all of this, and in that sense, one of the reasons why poetry really helps in the modern world is, on the whole, it's quite concise. So yes, I do think our concentration spans are dramatically affected. I don't know about you, but I'm often sitting reading a novel, and after half an hour or whatever, I find my hand reaching for that damn device, and then I'm thinking, why am I doing that? I'm reading a book. Nothing's changed. Nothing's happened. I think we have a serious problem on our hands, which we're not necessarily very good at engaging with.
Or being present. Have you ever had somebody who's come into your pharmacy and patently not listened to you reading them the poem? And not really taken on board, or is angry indeed?
No, because rather I was saying about you don't go to the doctor unless you're ill, on the whole, or unless you think you need to. Pretty much everyone's come to see me because they want to talk about something, and usually the people who begin with "I'm fine" are the people who are first reaching for the Kleenex. I'd say half the people I talk to reach for the Kleenex in that.
But in a way, it did speak to me. Sometimes you go and when you go to the pharmacy, you might get given a medicine and you think that's rubbish, didn't make any difference.
Yes. If I've got it wrong, yes.
But I wonder how much of it is them talking to you. That's what, in a way, I've had the same thought about it.
That's true. Unburdening yourself is half the battle. But there is that look of complicity on people's faces when you've read a poem and you see that they've taken it in, and that's the real power.
Do you read it to them?
Yes, I do, and then I give them a printed copy to take away. And I had this lovely moment. I got an email from somebody from Liverpool, actually. I'd been up doing a pharmacy with one of the mental health units in Liverpool, and she was suffering from loneliness, and I'd given her 4 lines by Hafez, which are, "I wish I could show you, when you're lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being." 4 simple words, simple lines, and I gave her a printout, and I said, stick it on your mirror, learn it off by heart, and read it every morning to yourself. And she sent me an email, and she said, you won't remember me, but you saw me in Liverpool those months ago, and last night I got home to my flat, and it had been burgled, and in that awful way that burglars do, everything was everywhere. And the only thing that hadn't moved, she said, were those 4 lines of poetry sticking on my mirror. Thank you, she said. It got me through the night.
That's wonderful.
Jeanette.
Yes.
The next poem.
Oh, it's Atlas, isn't it? I'm going to get Sue to talk about this because I know she loves it, and I do too. Because I have an Atlas complex. I'm a Virgo, and so is Sue, so we probably all think that we have to hold up the entire world all of the time. But William has a beautiful introduction to this poem in the book, which I hope you'll get afterwards, because it really is it's a splendid book, where he talks about just living in the day-to-day of love and what love needs in order to get through every day, and those acts of kindness, which are often really mundane and prosaic, not glamorous or operatic at all. And this poem is really about that. And I was thinking about it actually when I chose, and I was taking round some wood to my ex-wife in the snow and thinking you actually never lose the people that you love, even if you're not with them anymore. And you have to do things like take them a bag of wood when it's snowing.
It's true. Because so much poetry is written about the first flush of love, isn't it?
Yeah.
And about passion and sex. And actually what keeps a relationship upright is the rather steady, mundane tasks of care. Yesterday I washed and ironed my girlfriend's onesie and popped it on the pillow. And that's, I hope, an act of love. As well as housekeeping. Shall I read it?
Yes.
I do really love this, but I genuinely really love this poem. It's great. So it's called Atlas, as Jeanette said, and it's by U.A. Fanthorpe. There is a kind of love called maintenance, which stores the WD-40 and knows when to use it, which checks the insurance and doesn't forget the milkman, which remembers to plant bulbs, which answers letters, which knows the way the money goes, which deals with dentists and road fund tax and meeting trains and postcards to the lonely, which upholds the permanently rickety, elaborate structures of living, which is Atlas. And maintenance is the sensible side of love, which knows what time and weather are doing to my brickwork, insulates my faulty wiring, laughs at my dry, rotten jokes, remembers my need for gloss and grouting, which keeps my suspect edifice upright in air, as Atlas did the sky.
William, what have we got next?
We've got a poem called Voice by Anne Sanson, which I discovered in the early 90s, mid-90s. And it's one of my favorites. We all know about relationships. As Sue rightly said, you know, there are so many stages of love, from infatuation to help me to forget you, please, if you can sort of imagine the whole range. And I love this one because this is really about not being too needy. You may love each other, but if your voice is wrong, you can begin to collapse a relationship by missing out on how it really all began. Over to you, Jason.
Voice. 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 By Anne Sanson. Call, by all means, but just once. Don't use the broken heart again voice. The I'm sick to death of life and women and romance voice, but with a little help I'll try to struggle on voice. Spare me the promise and the curse voice. The answer phony, call me please when you get in voice. The nobody knows the trouble I've seen voice. The I'd value your advice voice. I want the how it was voice. The call me irresponsible but aren't I nice voice. They're such a bastard, but I want them in advance, voice. That we all have weaknesses and mine is being wicked, voice. The life's short and wasting time's the only vice, voice. The stay in touch but out of reach, voice. I want to hear the things it's better not to broach, voice. The things it's wiser not to voice, voice.